Breath of the Wild and this game, I would say probably both have a slow start. And I think this game maybe has a slightly less slow start, but I think they made the tutorial island like too big. It's like too much traversal for like not having any of the abilities, and like the first like hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you're like, is this just Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, for sure.
It takes a while for it to like click that you're like, oh no, this is a new thing.
Yeah. I to be honest, like I really wasn't having fun in the beginning there. I really wasn't. Like I liked what they were doing. Obviously, it's like, oh, you know, the clever design. You go in a circle, it kind of teaches you how to do things as you find the shrines. I get it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like that island has dog shit performance. Like that is the worst. It is the worst area in the game. Like it's really bad up there. So like that was bothering me. Just feeling like, I don't know, so slow. I was like, come on, let's just like, I don't know, get into the
and
the
you got
meat of it.
spoiled.
And I got spoiled on something, which is like literally, like, I don't know how big in the story that is. I don't know when that's going to come into play, but it's like, it seems like the kind of thing that is going to be a big like, oh wow kind of moment.
Shit.
And it was just spoiled in like a tweet reply before the game came out.
Frustrating. So. People are so shitty.
Yeah. So like that, right, I was combined with like, you know, not immediately loving the gameplay and like where we're going, and then being like, well, I'm also pissed about the story. So
yeah,
I was just in a bad mood.
We'll come back to Tears because there's a hilarious headline from this week for Tears that we can loop back around to, and then we can talk a little bit about the performance. And I want to talk a little bit about like Tears of the Kingdom running on the Switch. It's such a surreal thing to be happening insane, in 2023, yeah. And I think it has some really, really impressive things and some like not so impressive things that make me wish it was running on not the Switch. But I'm impressed with what Nintendo was able to do with the goddamn hardware that they have.
It's like a phone from 2015 that it's running on. Like, I'm not even joking. It's basically what it is.
It's ridiculous. But not to put you in a worse mood, but for our first article this week, oh man, it's a tough one.
What a shame. What
a shame. Hollow Knight Silksong has been delayed. Don't expect any news from this year's not E3.
To me, there's something wonderful about these games that everybody just wants so bad that take forever. It's like a very video gamey kind of thing. Right. You know, where it's just like, oh my God, it's been 6 years and this game just keeps getting delayed, that kind of thing. Where like, I feel like that doesn't happen with movies. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes it does. But remember that movie, the X-Men New Mutants? It was like a horror. It's supposed to be like the first horror X-Men movie.
Oh yeah, and then I don't follow it.
It got made like 8 years ago, and it got released like 2 years ago.
It actually came out.
Yeah, it actually came out. I think it ended up being a streamer. Ended up being like a streaming, like, oh, it's COVID. Here's a movie because we're such a nice media conglomerate.
But here's something for you to do, you peasants.
Yeah. But it was, but it did eventually get released. I think it was theaters and also streamer.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, So Hollow Knight Silksong, the long-awaited sequel to the beloved 27 indie hit Hollow Knight, will not make it out in the first half of 2023. Matthew Griffin from developer Team Cherry made the announcement on Twitter, saying simply that development is still continuing and declining to give an expected release window for the game, which at this point is probably smart. But
well,
yeah,
it sets people up for disappointment.
It is a surprise. I think at this point in my life, I'm actually at the point where, hey, you know what? If a game gets delayed, it's probably for good reason, and I'm probably happy that it got delayed. I'm just pulling up this trailer from 2022. This is the only gameplay, the only trailer we've actually any sign of life from this game was in 2022.
It's like archaeology. We're trying to piece together, you know, like signs of life. It's like, this is the only trace we have.
Literally signs of life. But the game was announced in 2019.
So that's coming in a little loud on my end.
Oh, it is? It should
be entirely. Oh, it's really loud.
Oh, really? I'll just mute it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the gameplay from 2022. It's like literally the only sign of life that we have of the game. The game was announced in 2019. I actually looked it up.
That's crazy. Wow.
Basically, I actually looked it up. Basically, the game came out. I wrote it down. Where did I put it? The game came out February 24th, 2017. Do you know when Breath of the Wild came out?
A month later.
Like 2 weeks. It was March 3rd.
That's crazy.
2017.
Wow.
So the fact that like
it's poetic that Tears and Silksong are, you know,
relevant at the same time.
The big engines that could, so to speak.
I know. It's really crazy. It's nuts. And you know, they announced this in 2019.
It was on the Game Pass, that like the Xbox event too, where they were like, you know, here it is coming in the next 12 months.
And
like,
they said everything in this event is going to be released in 2023. But like, you know, it's a bummer. I'm always bummed about delays, but like, I'm in the camp now where I'd rather have something get delayed and just be good. And I feel like I could be wrong, but Hollow Knight was such a good first swing of the bat that I feel like Team Cherry's follow-up is going to be something really special. So I'd rather them take the time to build it out.
Yeah. I agree. It's interesting to me that Team Cherry is kind of like, weirdly enough, I feel like they've kind of gotten a bit of the Nintendo like sauce wiped on them. Does that make any sense? Like they feel like a Nintendo studio in a way.
Dude, Nintendo's wiping their sauce all over them.
they took a sip of whatever Nintendo's serving. Like, you know, like because they originally launched, if I remember correctly, on the PC and the Switch. I think it was only on those two. I think it might still be, unless it came to, no, it did eventually come to PS4 and to the other consoles. But it's felt kind of connected to the Switch, I feel like, in a lot of ways. And they're one of those studios that like they're
a platformer.
Yeah, it's a platformer. They're a small group. They put out this like what I think is really actually a masterpiece of like the Metroidvania side-scrolling style. And they were like, you know, and similar to like the Zelda team, they're like, you know, we're not releasing this until it's ready. Like as simple as that. You know, we've got cool ideas. If we're not making a good game that's like cool and gonna push the boundaries forward of it, then, you know, we're not going
to rush it. And the gameplay looks so super cool. Playing as Hornet, like her move set, just from the little bit that we've seen, looks super different. Super fun. It's like, it gives me like that look of like when we finally saw Tears gameplay in a way where it's like, this looks the same, but it looks like the changes make it a whole new thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's there's an interesting conversation going around right now on some of like the Twitter spheres and stuff, which is interesting. We're seeing a lot of like sequels or big ambitious games that are reusing assets, like reusing animations, locations. Like Elden Ring is basically made up of every other game that From Software has ever made, you know, like lots of animations, lots of assets. It
literally has the same enemies. Like this like so, some of them like aren't even really reskinned at all.
And like Tears,
like, there's the dogs. The dogs are
they're back. They're in every single game. And like Tears is, you know, it was original. I mean, it's a sequel. Like it was originally, you know, codenamed Breath of the Wild 2, but like they're reusing the map, the animations, so many things and adding onto it. And that's pretty amazing. I feel like we haven't seen that kind of thing since, I don't know, like the early, like the PS2. We keep coming back to that, man. Feels like everything old is new again. You know, like smartly reusing these things is not disrespectful. It's not like you're being lazy. It's saying like, we did all the work already. Let's like make more stories and experiences with the stuff we've already made. And like Hollow Knight's doing that. Zelda did that. From Software is doing that. Jedi Survivor. They did that with a lot of their stuff too. They had the groundwork and kind of built off of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really glad that that's the direction that Nintendo went with it for Tears, because they were able to take like an amazing sandbox and just add this layer to it that makes it entirely new. And it has two new like pretty massive areas on top of the original sandbox, but even just exploring through the original sandbox, and you know, it has some landscape like shape, like reshaping and stuff, but it just the new abilities, man, it just makes them like a whole new thing. It's really cool. I think the flip side to that argument of like reusing stuff is you see a lot of people, right, for like a lot of like Destiny heads will be like they'll be like, why can't Bungie reuse animations between seasons, but Nintendo can do it? It's like, okay, well, Nintendo or From Software will do it while also innovating in a million other ways. Destiny has been the same literally since like 2015. And they're reusing everything. So it's like,
yeah.
It's that to me is laziness.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, that's a point I hadn't considered. Like, games reusing things from like a servicey standpoint versus like, single player or more like ambitious projects is like, when it's in a service kind of thing, it's like, I don't know, man. It just like, it can get into that. It just can feel so recycled because like, you're not really doing anything new. You're just you are literally just reusing things.
Yeah. You're literally reusing things.
And it's
you're
like,
using it to like, you're basically something like Destiny. It feels like you're reselling the same content over and over. Whereas something like FromSoft or Nintendo, they'll use old content to make something greater.
Yeah. Make something new, but without, you don't need to reinvent the wheel if you've already built the wheel. Or in the case of Tears of the Kingdom, all the wheels and building the robots.
All the wheels and mechs that shoot fire out of their peepees.
And all of the long sticks that you make out of wooden planks that you can use to get through everything.
And crucifying poor Koroks that you light on fire. The game is insane.
Psychopaths. Yeah.
Speaking
really
of the game, Dbrand, who I feel like I've heard their name before. I feel like you're more familiar with them.
They're out of control. Yeah, I've actually bought from them before. I have.
Oh, you bought from them? So Dbrand, who
I'm
is
invested in them.
What's the best way you describe them? As like a skin maker for consoles?
That's a funny term out of context.
Skin maker.
Skin maker.
It sounds like a FromSoft boss.
It does. Skin maker, the unclean. It's like a Sekiro boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do skins for various electronics, iPhones, AirPods, consoles. They also do cases and stuff too. I think they have a fair amount of what's the word for that? Not hardware, but like you're selling specific tooled products and stuff like that.
So Dbrand has come out and they made a special Tears of the Kingdom skin for the Nintendo Switch OLED. But the funny part is that the hieroglyphs here on the docks actually say "Go fuck yourself, lawyers" in a Hyrulean glyphs.
That is dedication. That is dedication to being a hater. You have to respect it.
I wonder if like Nintendo's even looking at that, just like.
Do they even know? They're like, man, like what do we even do? We can't come back from that.
Are they tipping their hat, or they just have one tier?
One tier of the kingdom.
One tier of the kingdom coming down. One tier for every kingdom.
Can they even dignify this with an answer? You know what I mean? Like, or should they just ignore it?
Do you think they'll get this killed? Well, you know what? They're very smart about it. If you look at it, and I'll actually hold up my
show
OLED
comparison. Oh yeah, we have actual footage confirmed comparison.
Actual OLED here. OLED here. So what they did, which is smart, and I used to work in advertising, and this is how this piece is very similar, but there are a lot of differences in the design patterns in the Triforce. A lot of the line work is different, so a lot of these are very circular swirls versus like these swirls here, which are like very like octagonal or like hexagonal. And what I learned when I used to work in advertising is that when you are designing something and you're trying not to get sued, you have to make your design like Nintendo doesn't own swirl pattern, right? So
like they don't own gold on a white background,
Exactly. So you can get away with designing something to almost impression something else as long as your design, you can make a legal argument that it's different enough, which is exactly what D-pad did here. And also Nintendo's console doesn't say "Go fuck yourself, lawyers" in Hyrulean. So
as far as we know, maybe
I wonder
it's
if
hidden
at that point you could honestly just argue like parody.
Yeah, it could fall under parody law. It's interesting, like you said, like it comes into the territory of obviously like we can look at that and be like, duh, like it's the same, but like it's one of those things where it has to really be under the word of the law and like what's subjective, because if the law is decided based on someone saying I think it looks similar, then obviously that's not going to work.
Too close.
Yeah.
Hey, we own green and gold and white.
It's just so funny, like them like slightly bending it. And this article went on to say it's funny they actually have the experience of bending it just enough from like when they put those, I forgot about that, the face plates for the PlayStation 5 way early on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forgot that was them that actually put those out, and they sold them, and they were like,
Oh, that
"Hey,
was
like
Dpad who made the
that
original
was Dbrand, yeah,
faceplates. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
Dbrand.
yeah, yeah." And they were like, "Come at us, Sony," and then
Oh,
Sony
here it
came at them,
is.
and yeah, Sony was like, excuse me."
Dbrand released a new version 2.0 of its PS5 faceplates. It's a product page headline called Checkmate Lures. Did Sony go at them? You said Sony did go at them.
Yeah, for the original ones, I think they basically sent them a cease and desist. Like, we're not suing, but we will if you keep selling these.
That's so funny.
So they like went back to the drawing board and like changed the design, like, and the tooling, like, just enough so they could be like, we're pretty sure.
So
Just try.
for anyone who doesn't know, we're talking about PlayStation 5. The sides. I remembers the original announcement when it came out, and people were just slapping pieces of paper on their Wi-Fi routers because it has these two obnoxiously long faceplates on each side, saying "Got the new PS5 early." So Dbrand made hot swappable PlayStation 5 plates, so you could take off the originals, slap on black ones, red ones, purple ones, like crazy designed ones, whatever. PlayStation, before they had even announced that they would be officially like hot swappable, were like absolutely fucking not. Had them shut down. And what Welsh is saying now is that Dbrand, like, I guess you're saying they just kind of like rounded them out a little bit more.
Yeah,
so
I think they just
design.
changed it just enough so that, like, a lawyer could be like, "That's good."
Yeah, it's different.
You're clear.
Yeah.
You're
Sony
free.
doesn't own shaped plastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I think they have that experience now. So they probably will do more stuff like this, honestly, with the clone of the kingdom, which I think is hilarious.
So
even the name, it's like if you were calling something
name.
like Beers of the Kingdom, for like a bar or something, then that would probably be infringement to some degree because it rhymes. But like Clone of the Kingdom, it's like we know what it means, but
yeah,
it's not close enough.
But yes, if you guys want a Clone of the Kingdom instead of having to buy a Switch OLED,
they go hard on Nintendo in there too. It's really funny. Like normally I don't really like kind of edgy marketing or branding and stuff, but like they're so committed to the bit that like you have to respect it. I think they're basically like, don't go buy that like $350 overpriced piece of trash.
Yeah,
they're like, save yourself $310 and buy this instead.
So while we're on the topic of tiers, why don't we talk a little bit about? So I think we talked about a little bit at the beginning, but why don't we talk a little bit about our experience with the game so far? When I got it a week ago. No, I only got it 6 days ago. It feels like I've had the game for a while already.
Yeah, it is. I had to go on May 17th. It came out on the 12th. So
yeah,
5 days.
Yeah, and I got it a day early because I live in crime-ridden New York City.
Yeah, people passing out copies of Nintendo Switch games on the street corners, man.
Trading Tears of the Kingdom for heroin a day
Skid
early.
Row, yeah. You just go there and they're like, Switch cartridges.
So I got it and I streamed it on my Twitch channel a little bit, like a couple hours early before the midnight release. And like I said, it's definitely has a little bit of a slow start. I think the tutorial island was like, it was too large, and like you just like, we saw the abilities before the game came out. I wanted those abilities. Like I just wanted to like get into the new stuff.
Dive in.
And the intro, first of all, the intro to this game, outstanding. It's so cool. Solid. It is so captivating. When you turn the game on for the first time, you don't even see the main menu. It just starts. You just start walking. It just shows you the like opening credits, the opening splash screens, and then you just link again. And that was also a little overwhelming because I couldn't remember any of the controls. And you're like, yeah, I couldn't remember any of the controls, and I was like, how do I do this? Like,
how do I shot web? How do I swing my sword?
How do I shoot my web? Yeah. But the intro is super cool. I don't want to spoil it because it's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. But it was awesome, and it was super captivating. And then you get to this introductory island, and it's just a little. It just kind of feels like you're playing Breath of the Wild again.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, I was just waiting for it to hit, and then there's the trailers have shown a lot of skydiving and stuff. Once you take that first skydive, that's when it feels like the game starts, and you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And then it really starts to snowball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree for the most part, but the funny thing is for me, like I'm a huge Zelda fan. Like I've played, I think, nearly all of them except for like one or two of the random sort of spin-offs, and like I like what they're doing. I want them to experiment and try new things, but like I really liked Breath of the Wild when it first came out, but I'm not the hugest fan. I wouldn't rank it in my top Zelda games personally. And so for me, I went into this being like, let's see, is it going to be more Breath, or are they going to do some different things? And like a lot of the buzz coming out of it beforehand, and like the reviews especially, was like don't worry, like they're like fixing everything that you had a complaint, it's gone, like that kind of thing. And so
right.
I booted it up, and like that intro was like, really cool. It was like very narratively tight, like felt like it was kind of directed. There was a bit more of that, like, I don't know, intentionality to it. And I was like, oh, here we go, dude. It's got a story. Like, this is gonna be great. There's cutscenes, and then like really cool, really great start, and then you're
especially because Breath of the Wild, like the story is really enjoyable, but for the most part, it's like very lighthearted, and it feels like it's secondary to them. Like, just you could tell they were just like, what is Link in an open world? Like, what is Link when he has full freedom of exploration, and there's a narrative for him to explore, to drive him, a plot driving for him to explore that world. This one feels like, because they already had the sandbox and just expanded on it, they were able to like really hone in on the story, because the story parts that I've seen so far are all very tight, like the intro was, and they're all really dark and a lot of like feeling of like helplessness, like how is this going to resolve? When the whole time Breath of the Wild, you're like, we're gonna we're gonna group up and we're gonna fucking
we'll be fine.
Exactly.
I'm hoping to. I can't wait to get to more of that stuff. I've mostly just been. I'm still very early into, like, mostly just kind of shrine to shrine. You see something in the distance, you go to it. And that was the funny thing, like the tutorial island, which is literally is just a tutorial island in this case. Like, I loved that intro, and then you're dropped there, and just to me, like, it just felt, just like you said, felt like Breath of the Wild, and I was just like, okay, here we go again. Like, my weapons are breaking. I'm picking up all these ingredients, and I'm going to be cooking them. I'm like solving a couple of little puzzles here. Oh, there's some shrines. They're the same. That was my perspective. I was kind of like, oh man, like, it started so strong, but it looks like the formula is still like the same thing that wasn't really clicking for me with Breath of the Wild. So initially I was just like, man, I don't know, like, I'm having trouble getting into this, because like I genuinely like wasn't really having fun with it, and I think I was
some very I know when he was messaging our friend's Discord, and nothing angry, but I know when you're sending messages where you're frustrated.
You're the
tone. You're just like trying to say things in the nicest way, but I just know that you're saying things to just get them out.
I'm coping. I'm molding. It's like, because it's not, I didn't think it was bad, like, I don't think it's in any way an objectively bad game, in no means whatsoever, but it was just like, I guess I went in with these expectations of like, there's a lot of hyperbolic talk, I think, about the game, and in general, and like some people online saying like, oh man, within like 30 minutes, I knew this was the best game ever made, like that kind of thing, like literally. And if that's your experience, like, that's great. Like, I'm very happy that something about it clicked for you. I was just like, I was sitting there with my controller, like, the fuck are you talking about? This is Breath of the Wild. It's great, but it's not like, setting the world on fire. But that's just the intro, and I have a lot more to play. So I think I went into it with just like, not like a bad attitude, but just, I guess, maybe too objective an attitude, where I need to kind of like step back and just be like, let's play this, brand new again, and not have an objective, just explore it and see what it has to offer.
And it got some bit got spoiled for you. That's probably a big storyline.
That's a big part of it.
You're also very attuned to performance of games and performance issues. And I think those two things combined seem to have a pretty big impact on the way you were looking at the game.
Yeah, like the story, it's Zelda. Like, I hope that they have a cooler story in this, and you said that it's going in that direction, but it's like, I'm not necessarily, what am I trying to say? It's like let me rewind. I completely lost my train of thought.
No, you're fine. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about like the performance a little bit. So you're very attuned to like noticing the performance of games and when frames drop. If for me, like if a frame's dropping from like 26 to 30, I'm probably not going to notice it, but I feel like it hits you in the brain where you'll feel nauseous. So I feel like you were kind of seeing a lot of those things. I think in the something I've noticed less as the game has gone on, and I don't know if that's just me or if the game is doing it less. When you move the camera, the background resolution, and I saw this in Digital Foundry's video, the background resolution, the rendering drops all the way down to like 720 or even lower.
Yeah.
And then when you stop moving the camera, it snaps back to like their AMD Fidelity 1080 render.
It's frustrating. Like I wish I didn't notice those sorts of things. It's gotten better as I've played because it's like you just get into it and you kind of get used to it. But like I find those sorts of things really distracting. I think they went with like a really aggressive solution where for me, it's like very noticeable that like it's almost never actually settling in at any given resolution. It's like kind of constantly going up and down and switching
rewind
around.
It. Like solution for what? Like what do you like give like what are you talking about specifically? The solution for the game's resolution as a whole, for how to render things in a distance, like what are you referencing exactly?
Yeah, they basically the way they approached, as far as we know, this is the hardware is very underpowered at this point. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, it's old AF.
And so they are targeting
a brick.
Yeah, they're targeting 900p using AMD's FSR Fidelity Super Resolution to bring it up to 1080p from there. But within that 900p kind of like window or target, they're also using a dynamic resolution. So it's kind of like, and that means it's basically scaling down and scaling back up on performance to try and keep that close to 30. And this is the thing, like I understand why they have to do that. And I'd rather they do that than, it constantly, because that's how you get 30 FPS, and it is mostly 30, which is great. I prefer just a solid stability over anything else. But it's like
some of those resolution drops. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's kind of like, for me, I like visual fidelity to be like kind of steady, whether it's low, whether it's high, like pick a target and kind of stay there. So for me, like the constant kind of up and down is like, it's distracting. I noticed that kind of thing. And I know it is the reality of something being on the Switch. It's just the frustrating thing for me is just like imagining how much further they could have gone with this game with stronger hardware. Cause like, I understand, like, I'm not saying that like it's lazy or it's a bad job. Like it is an engineering feat that they did that they had to use these compromises, but it's the kind of thing that like, it's just frustrating because like I would love to see this. You see people putting footage out of like it playing on strong PCs and stuff, and like the art style is so strong. It's so strong. It's a gorgeous game, but I feel like it's so compromised by that technical presentation that to me it is frustrating.
So, yeah, you had a little bit of a soiled launch. Is it growing on you now? Like, do you feel more? Are you more into it? Like.
Yeah, it is definitely growing on me more. The story stuff that I kind of got spoiled on is like, the frustrating thing about that for me is like, I'm not coming to Zelda for a super strong story, but I'm here to see what they do, and I'm really excited about that. And like, I want to be surprised. I want everything to feel organic. So like just knowing anything about like a resolution to something or something like that, it's just like,
it's a bummer. Yeah,
man, like that's.
And it seems like they are maybe I really don't know at all, but and this could be a an idea that I purely have based on just the bullshit people have been saying for the last 5 years of rumors and blah blah. Yeah. But it does feel like they are in some way trying to resolve the last 30 years of Zelda, of this franchise, the canon, and like trying to pull it together a little bit, at least more so than like they ever have in the past. And I think that is why spoilers for this one hurt even more, because
for sure,
this I think is probably the most anticipated story, because people had those thoughts of like it just Zelda just feels like a franchise that never really you never really know what the fuck is going on, where you are in time, what timeline you're playing as Link. Like, if you look at the timeline, it's got 3 different ones. It seems like maybe this game is like trying to resolve a bunch of that, and people are really, really excited for like finally getting answers of like what the fuck is going on. How did we get here? Who is like, Ganondorf? Like,
Breath of the Wild had
you know who Ganondorf is from, Demise or whatever, but it's like, is there some kind of fucking explanation as to all of this bullshit? How did Hyrule ever get like this? Like,
the characterization in Breath of the Wild was like probably the strongest it's been in the franchise so far. Like, they've always had great characters and stuff, 100%. But you know, just like some cutscenes for starters, which is cool. Like some voices, all that kind of thing. So it was just, seeing what they do with this one, kind of the swan song of the Switch, at least in its current iteration. Knowing anything ahead of time is just, the joy of this stuff is to explore it. So that
spoiler culture's out of fucking control.
That was weighing on me. Yeah, it really is. And there's the technical stuff, but it's one of those things where I just have to remind myself that it's about playing the game. And just having fun with it. And if I'm not having fun, then
buying it again,
take a step, come back
on Switch 2.
And buying the $70 deluxe edition that runs at 60 FPS on the Switch 2.
But for me, so far, I think a lot of the reviews of it being around like a 97, 96, 97, 98, that for me is hitting so far. I think like what they were able to build on the Switch is like, it is so fucking impressive to me.
It's a huge world.
And there's certain things like, the what is traditionally like a Assassin's Creed tower sync. This has the best version of that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is pretty fire. Like,
it's fire, and also it has a fucking actual use, because I use those as traversal in the game. If I need to like get far across the map, the way the tower sync work, it gives you the ability to fucking like zoom across the map. And they did all these things because they knew like we cannot make the player base play through the sandbox again at the same pace.
Yeah.
So they implemented new abilities and new things in the sandbox itself, like the towers, to give the people like the ability to just zoom through, which is what I feel like I've been moving at a crazy pace, a way faster pace, because I'm not walking through walking down every road. I have my horses from Breath of the Wild. The towers shoot you into the air, and you can you can just glide and fucking go. So it's I think they took an amazing sandbox, and they didn't look at it and say, how do we reinvent this? They said, how do we build on top of it, and how do we add layers of exploration to it?
Yeah.
And I think what's really cool, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you've played a lot more OG Zelda than I have. I was like, I'm like the Zelda player who played 4 Swords and then Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I mean, it's like the least Zelda game ever, and then like arguably another like least Zelda game ever.
Yeah, like 2 things that tried to reinvent the franchise. One not successfully, this one very successfully.
And like I think I had I think I might have played like Minish Cap. I had a couple of the Game Boy ones, but whatever.
Yeah.
Basically though, like I think that the abilities, the Ascend, Rewind, and the Fusion and Ultra Hand, I think they do an incredible job of giving that OG Zelda exploration feeling back to the game. Because you were able to like explore things in new ways. It gives you like the freedom of like choice throughout the sandbox, and it lets you like discover things that you normally wouldn't have thought you could even like reach until you're like really looking at something and you're like, well, if I just rewind that, technically I could, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it is in many ways like a following in the footsteps of the Zelda games that did have that. Like Ocarina of Time is a linear game, but it's like kind of the hub and spoke design philosophy, which is like, you've got a general kind of area to explore, and then each is a branching area with a purpose to it. And like, you could go in different directions from the get-go basically, and like kind of explore a bit, but you were always kind of eventually funneled into, beats and things like that, and
Right.
the aspects of getting new items and like upgrades and stuff like that to explore more is, I guess that's the kind of thing that I miss, is like a very specific, like designed areas that feel like you're kind of like there's themes to them and whatnot. But Breath of the Wild basically took that classic philosophy of like, hey, you can go anywhere and you've got these tools to get into new places, and just gave them to everybody right at the start.
Yeah.
So it's tricky for me because like I'm not someone who thinks that, I don't think it's like ruined the franchise or anything like that. It's just a different direction. It's one that like works for me in some ways, doesn't work for me in others. But I would rather they keep reinventing and trying new things, honestly. I want those classic games and I can go play them.
And I do think they will circle back on a very classic Zelda style at some point.
Yeah.
Because nostalgia sells, and also because it's a proven game design.
Yeah,
it's a game design that works.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. Like, I think this is the kind of shit that reminds me of Nintendo in their GameCube era, where they're just like, this is full creative.
Yeah, firing on all cylinders. Like Mario's got a freaking water jet on his back. Luigi's got a vacuum cleaner. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and exactly. And the creativity that they gave to the players, that layer that they added to the sandbox, like it should not run as well as it does. It should be buggy as hell. Like the fact that you like ascending, I've ascended through an entire mountain.
Yeah.
How does that even like work? You know what I mean? Like that shit, that ascending in most other games, an ability like that would only work in very select areas. This game is designed so that there are probably areas in the game where you can use ascend perfectly that they didn't even like test or realize, because the game's just so big.
Yeah.
It's really I'm beyond impressed with how they made such a dynamic, fluid system with the abilities and the physics of how it works.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like in a year, pretty much like 2 calendar years where we're seeing a lot of buggy shit coming out. Like, for performance and issues aside, which is just kind of the nature of the console, like it is a very stable, exceptionally stable game. Like there are no
zero. I haven't seen one like
no bugs, no crashes, no freezes. Like, and it's funny to say that that's like a remarkable thing, but it really is. Like that sense of fluidity to everything, and like the loading times are actually really good for the Switch, which is kind of mind blowing. And like that just goes to show, it's like when the advantage of, you have a team of people who are funded for their creativity to put something together without a deadline or without like a fear of, I don't know, needing to appeal to certain people or anything like that. Like they shoot for the moon, and they also take the time to optimize. And really make sure that it is a fluid product.
How much do you think the what are the idea people called at Disney?
Oh, the Imagineers.
Yeah, how much do you think the Imagineers just like hate the creatives at Nintendo? Like they just like they just have like the like face on a dartboard in the break room, just like like all the darts just like exploding into confetti because it's some like weird Disney Imagineer shit. It's just Nintendo's like the fucking Disney of video games when they want to be. They will just blow the lid off on creativity and just come out with some shit that like should not work, or is just so nature breaking to the IP that it should everyone should hate it. But it's Donkey Kong or Metroid Prime or Star Fox Adventures or some shit, and
all great games.
And it's just great. They're just, like you said, they're just trying to try and innovate.
Yeah, it's funny, like the corporate Nintendo and like the artistic Nintendo, like the developers versus the business people, I feel like are just so different in so many ways. That it's so easy to get frustrated by like the business practices of the company, but then just love the games. I think that's always the position I found myself in, where I'm just like, oh God, fine, I'll support you because I want to play these awesome games and like support the developers, but like, they do such weird things as a company. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Speaking of companies that do weird things, Amazon, our good buddies over at Amazon, are making Lord of the Rings MMO again.
Thank God.
After
Finally.
an earlier attempt was canceled, New World Studio to make game based on The Hobbit and the book trilogy. Amazon Games has announced it's making a new massively multiplayer online game based on the Lord of the Rings. Development is being led by New World Studio, Amazon Games, Orange County. This is an all-new production separate from an earlier attempt to make a Lord of the Rings MMO that was canceled by Amazon in 2021. This game will be an open-world MMO adventure in a persistent world set in Middle-earth, featuring the beloved stories of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings literary trilogy. According to Amazon's news release, it's early in development and likely several years away, but will be coming to PC and consoles. Oh, I didn't realize that. PC and consoles. Wow. That's it in terms of details. This is really interesting.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's a big we'll see. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings guy. I know you are.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
How are you feeling about it? Like, so I have a lot of thoughts, but how are you feeling about it? And you have some experience with Lost Ark. I don't think you played New World yet. I played a little bit.
No, I haven't played it.
But yeah, how are you feeling?
It's tricky, man. Like, I love Lord of the Rings. I love the books. I love the movies. It's weird because, like, you know, fantasy is a great setting for video games, as we know. There's a million of them. We love them. But, like, there's something about Lord of the Rings where, like, when you really kind of break it down, it's like a very fundamental building block of fantasy. Like, the stories that are told in the books and the movies, like, those are like the heroes doing the coolest shit, where, like, the reality of the world of Middle-earth is, like, relatively peaceful. It's kind of just an analogy for England and like the UK. And it's like trying to find, I don't know, like trying to make games within the universe has always felt a little bit weird to me. They've succeeded with the Lord of the Rings Online has been running for like 15 years at this point. It's the kind of thing where I just wonder what they're going to put into it. You know, like how do you make Middle Earth really interesting from a gameplay perspective? You know, like what kind of combat encounters, what kind of stories are you going to tell? Like where are you going to set it? Yeah, I don't know. I love Lord of the Rings, but I feel like there's just a cashing in on it that we see a lot because it's like the biggest name in fantasy that doesn't necessarily always match up with like the tone of the original stories. And I say that as a gamer, as someone who loves games. Like, I don't know if they're great. It's a great world for video games, but that's just my personal perspective, you know?
Yeah. And also, like, you know, the tone of their show, like, did the tone of their show match the literature and the movies, you know?
Not really. Kind of, right. Sort of. Part of it did.
Yeah.
I loved the first half of that season, and then the second half I was just like, what is going on? Yeah, what is going on? Right. And like Amazon, anything with Amazon and Lord of the Rings, I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, you know, Lost Ark, you know, is something that, you know, existed in South Korea, and Amazon was really just in charge of the, like, bringing it over to North America, but they didn't, you know, have any desire to change the free to play nature of it and how much money they can make off of it. New World is not free to play, but New World is like, you know, you buy it like a standard game, and then everything's included after that. I'm pretty sure it also has a cash shop, but like, it's technically not free to play. But I got it for $20, like with everything included since the launch and all the
I grabbed that too, and then I didn't play it. I think I installed it too, and I never booted it up.
It's essentially free to play. I would say it has like, but the MTX, from what I remember, it's not super egregious. But I don't know how much they're supporting the game. It seems like every once in a while they make a big push for it. I know they had a big server, like not reset, but they did like a
big merge or something.
I think they merged a bunch of servers and they launched a few new ones. But it's one of those things where, you know, they said like almost 2 years ago that they were going to have mounts, and like they still don't have mounts. You know,
the mounts. Yeah.
And now they're saying the same studio is going to work on a different MMO. So what does that mean for New World? Is New World dead?
Yeah, good point.
It gives me hope because New World is gorgeous. New World is gorgeous. Yeah. If I wanted a team to make an MMO that felt really good from like just like a gameplay perspective and and looked really good, I think that team does have really good capabilities to do that. because when you jump into New World, you're like, it really hit the spot for me of being like a modern MMO, like because I love WoW. I love WoW. It's great. I love Final Fantasy 14. It's great, but those games are really running off things that were like WoW is running off something that's from like 2006. And what WoW is able to do, if you look at something like Dragonflight versus vanilla WoW, it's actually insane that they're even the same engine. It doesn't make any sense.
Running on the same code fundamentally, which is insane.
But for Final Fantasy 14, it all kind of looks the same, and you can just tell, you can still tell that they're old, right? But New World, it's like, wow, this really feels like a modernized MMO gaming engine, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's just cool, and I just don't think New World's like actual gameplay is satisfying enough to hook me for like a long, like anything like WoW or Final Fantasy 14 could. So I want an MMO. I wanted an MMO for a long time that hits both, feels modern, and is also just has really good, just feels really satisfying to play. Like really hooks you into the world.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had one like it. I don't really think we had one. Lost Ark felt kind of like that as well.
Yeah,
but then the free to play was so tough.
It's a tough genre. Like so many of the things that MMOs did in the past are being done now by like live service games, just multiplayer platforms and stuff, even consoles, and just social spaces. So it's curious to see like how can something call itself an MMO and really set itself apart in like 2023, 24, 25. I guess that's what I mean when I'm like, I wonder with Lord of the Rings, like how do you make a bunch of different kinds of classes? Like how can you make the combat interesting? Because like at the end of the day, there's swords and sorcery and stuff, but it's not like there's not like a ton of magic and like that kind of thing. It's like, is it all just going to be kind of like
breaking news? There's about to be.
Yeah, like I wonder, like how is every player character going to have agency and kind of like fit into the world? What period of time in Middle Earth will they set it in? I wonder. I mean, I'm open for it, man. Like I love MMOs. I love Lord of the Rings. If they can do a good job, I'll be happy with it. I'm always curious. I'm always curious to see what people try to do. Cause like Shadow of Mordor was good. That was actually a really good game. Set in Middle Earth. I don't believe it's canon, but but even in that, it's like
they made it not canon.
I think I can't remember if it's in like a wishy-washy uncertain place or not, but I think a lot of people are like, it's not canon. Because like you run into Gollum at one point and he's like, why is he there? Like there's weird stuff going on. But even that, at the end of the day, it's like you're just a guy with a sword running around killing orcs, which works in a single player kind of thing. But how do you make that an MMO? I wonder, how do you do raids? Big orcs? We'll find out.
Yeah. I know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. I hope it's good. I just want everything to be good. My only inkling about it not wanting it to be good is that Amazon growing more and more into the game space scares the fucking shit out of me.
Yeah,
it's giving me like that yucky feeling.
Yeah, I mean, if they got good developers who are passionate, I want them to get work. But it's like big ass corporations that are too big to fail, basically infinitely funding their way into industries always makes me nervous.
Maybe the in-game mail system will have a Amazon one-day Prime delivery.
Yeah, a subscription to Lord of the Rings Online comes with your Amazon Prime subscription.
Yeah, and in the mail system in the game is branded as Amazon Prime delivery.
You get Amazon Prime deliveries in your little hobbit hole.
Amazon Prime one day. What the fuck is that? Oh, like the giant eagles. Amazon Prime eagle delivery.
I hope it's good, man. Like I do love that world. Like there's some really cool locations and stuff. Just like if they make it really immersive, like you make a character and just explore Middle Earth, like I don't know, that'd be fun. That'd be cool. Make a little hobbit, make a little man, just walk.
And maybe it'll be Steam Deck compatible or Asus ROG compatible.
Hey, the ROG Ally, baby.
Is it ROG Ally? I've been calling it
ROG. I think so. I think it's ROG.
ROG. Oh, it's ROG. Yeah, Asus ROG. That's weird.
ROG.
The Asus ROG is coming out next month, June 13th, and the most expensive model is $699, which I think actually a lot of people were really surprised by. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be like $1,000 handheld system.
Pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. It looks really cool. The hardware specs on it, I
Look at
don't
that
remember all of them on top of
RGB,
my
baby,
head.
those LEDs.
Yeah, the
Look
RG
at
dude, this thing plays games, brother.
that. This is
This
for
thing's for
gamers
gamers,
only.
brother.
This is for confirmed gamers.
Confirmed gamers only buying this console, brother. You want to play
It's
your
crazy.
Forza Horizon 5 with your RGB lights? Come on, brother.
This space has blown up so much. The handheld PC stuff, it's crazy. Like these things have been around for years, but like
Yeah.
I think it was the Steam Deck was such a big push. Like other companies are getting into it, and it's just like I'm all for it, man. Like I love PC gaming, I love handheld gaming. Like bring it on. The more competition we see here, the better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. I love my Steam Deck. I don't use it as much as I wish I did. It's really funny. Every time I want to use my Steam Deck, Nintendo releases some shit that I have to play. Like because
That's
every
some
time
shit
I'm
you
like,
have to buy, and then you buy the hardware and you got to use it.
I'll go on a trip. I'm going on a trip this weekend. Blah blah. I'll take it for the plane ride. Whatever. Oh, Tears of the Kingdom's out. You're taking your Switch, bitch. Like Nintendo knows. Nintendo's like, listen, motherfucker, you're going on a plane. You're taking the Switch. Here's one of the most defining games of the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
now you have to take the Switch with you.
I want to see how Nintendo hits back against this stuff because, like, for so long they've been the only players in the handheld space, and like the bigger this stuff gets, I wonder.
And these things run emulators. These things straight up run emulation. So
they run emulators. They run a lot of things. Like they're portable PCs. They're well powered PCs for
Steam Deck can run Yuzu, right? Yuzu, the Switch emulator.
It certainly can.
So at that point, it's like, that's scary. Nintendo has to really pick up. I hope this means that for Nintendo, they will see a reason to swing for the fences again.
Yeah,
like they did in the GameCube era to keep people really drawn in.
I think like not emulation, because emulation is a separate thing, but like the aspect of piracy. I don't want to say necessarily piracy, because sometimes you can buy the game, but the people wanting to play products outside the way that they're intended to be played is, to me, like more of a service issue than anything. Gabe Newell said that years ago. He was like, when they were talking about the Steam platform, piracy is a service issue. Some people just pirate regardless, but like most people will do that if they feel like the normal way of getting something is somehow like compromised or frustrating. And for me, it's like people are playing this stuff on PCs and other platforms because the Switch is so outdated. It's so locked down. Like there's aspects of it that like people want to play these games. Maybe they'll pay for them, but then they're getting a better experience on other hardware. And that's the problem, I think.
Right.
Like,
yeah, for sure. And even with Nintendo having to keep swinging for the fences to try to keep innovating, and hopefully their next handheld is great. Steam Deck, even they acknowledged the ROG Ally, and they even said like we're happy to have competitors. Like we want this handheld space to keep thriving and getting better. And I think it's that's exactly, I think it's the best thing to say in 100%. Response to something being made. The ROG Ally has a 1080p 120 hertz screen, which is pretty sick. Yeah. What is Steam Deck? It's 800p 60.
800p 60, yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's a great start. And the Steam Deck is innovative as hell because they know that it's such a genius product, because they know that they just have such a large audience of gamers, PC gamers that have just built their entire ecosystem on Steam.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, now you can just take it wherever. And I
have so many games on there. Like being able to take them on the go, play them portably, like is fantastic. It feels like, I'm reading a book somewhere and I can get up and take it somewhere else. Like I'm playing a game on the monitor, on the TV, like to the fullest extent that I can fund with my computer, and I can also take it on the go. Like that's an amazing feeling.
And I got to hold the ROG Ally and opened up Steam.
Comfortable.
Yeah, it felt comfortable. The Steam Deck, the Steam software ran great on it. Like it ran kind of like it would on like big picture mode on a desktop, or just like it does on Steam Deck. It felt like it just felt like I was holding a Steam Deck. I didn't really get to play with any games, but it felt great. It looked great. We'll see how it compares when it comes out. And I think there's some people who are doing like reviews already. But like it seems like reviews are really positive. It seems like if you're really deeply nested in the Steam ecosphere, you might want to stick around with Steam Deck for a little while. But it seems like if you're willing to kind of jump into a more fast and loose window environment, then the ROG Ally might be the choice.
Might be your ally.
Might be your ally in gaming
in these trying times.
ROG Ally, your ally in gaming.
Your ally in gaming.
All right, what else we got? There's something interesting that happened this week, which is, we've talked about this a little bit before. Is PlayStation has to pay back some loot boxes after a court ruling.
Oh no!
Oh,
will
no,
they survive?
Oh no! Earlier this year, an Austrian court decided that the market for FIFA's Ultimate Team card packs constituted illegal gambling. At the time, not much else was made of the decision, but a report from a German site, Gamsmarkt. Gamsmarkt. No, you do it again. That was bad.
Gamsmarkt.
He's an actor. I'm not. Saying Sony hasn't appealed the decision shows the ruling is now has a cost. While details of the case itself can't be published for the public, Gamesmarkt reports that Sony now has to refund the plaintiff of the 2020 case about $364 USD, and that the law firm actually has several hundred clients lined up after this guy. Interesting enough, Sony actually has to pay them back, but not EA, who's the publisher and developer of FIFA, and that's because all the transactions were made on Sony's store.
That's funny.
Yeah, I wonder if they are going to take EA's cut back from them.
I wonder. Works. Yeah, I mean,
or if it's just like they just inherited all the liability from it.
It's so weird that Sony is the one paying it, but from a storefront, that does make sense. I wonder, obviously EA is not going to get hurt by that financially, but I wonder if it's the kind of thing where, Sony or the other big marketplaces and storefronts will be like, you have to change this. It's giving us a liability.
Yeah,
and, they'll have the weight to kind of get EA to change their troubled ways.
Yeah, the whole concept of loot boxes is just like really, really, really interesting. I think people are wising up to it pretty sharply.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think a lot of people are like noticing that it's kind of like gambling for kids in certain cases, or just gambling for
straight
anyone.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you are taking I guess like you're spending money to take a chance on something, not knowing what you're going to get.
Yeah, literally.
It's gambling. It's gambling at the end of the day.
And in some cases, like Counter-Strike, it's like where things can be resold. You're gambling on things that are potentially worth more or less of a direct value.
Yeah, it's actual money at that point. It's basically the same as a pachinko parlor where you get the little balls and then you go next door and exchange them for cash or whatever. It's like you're getting a digital item and it's like, oh, it's not money, it's not gambling, but it's like they can go and sell it.
And it still gives the dopamine hit of gambling when you get a diamond Michael Jordan card in NBA 2K, whatever.
It's real, man. Creator. Like, I think that's the tricky thing about legislating it is you're legislating what we just human behavior and like addictive behavior, because it's like we know that this shit is predatory. Like it's preying on a very fundamental human thing, which is chasing that dopamine. It's a reason people get addicted to gambling, and like there's laws and regulations about it in real life. And I think there need to be for this kind of stuff, man. It's like you see people losing a lot of money on these things because they get addicted to it, and it's just there's got to be something.
Yeah.
Bring on the regulators, man.
So this is an interesting first start. It'll be really wild to see what happens with loot boxes and stuff over the next couple of years. I wonder if they're going to get like
I feel like it has shifted entirely. I feel like there used to be a lot more games with loot boxes. Overwatch, speaking of news of this week.
Yeah. Perfect.
And like I think a lot of companies kind of realized like, I think we know where the wind's blowing here. So they've kind of like shifted more into like battle passes and
totally. Yeah, like you said, Overwatch being the biggest example of that. That was like a main factor of Overwatch's core that was like the system. But the big difference in Overwatch, and I will give them credit for that. For this is that like the Overwatch loot boxes were earnable.
Yeah.
You earned Overwatch loot boxes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that that felt much better because it was a reward for just playing the game.
Yeah,
and you didn't really you could buy them, but I mean, I didn't personally. I wasn't buying Overwatch loot boxes really at all because I was getting them at a frequent enough rate as to where I feel like I didn't have to.
Yeah, and it's like, the concept of opening a thing in a video game and like getting a randomized item is like, that shouldn't be illegal. Like that's not fundamentally an issue. It's more like when it costs real money, and
Right.
there's like that kind of like feedback loop. Because like if you can earn something, like in a Mario game, if you like punch a block and it spins a bunch of times and you get a random item, like that's not gambling. But if you had to like pay $1 every time you did, I don't know, maybe it would be. It's like
yeah.
like if things are earnable, if there's like it's the monetization, man. That's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I agree. While we're talking about Overwatch, let's talk about one of Blizzard's biggest L's in a hot minute. Yeah,
this is an L the size of freaking Wisconsin.
Blizzard who's like seemingly been on a hot streak. Honestly, this is a very disappointing bit of news.
It's worrying.
Overwatch 2's PvE hero mode is being scrapped. Blizzard explains what happened and why.
Where to begin? Yeah.
So basically, this is a long interview. I didn't get to read it in full either. I wish I did. I read parts of it. But basically, for those who aren't familiar, Overwatch came out in like 2016?
2016, I believe, yeah.
And Overwatch was like a team shooter. It wasn't free to play, didn't really even exist yet. You bought the game. It was really, really fun. It lost a lot of steam as time went on. It lost a lot of support as Blizzard kind of like fell apart. But then last year, Blizzard kind of out of nowhere. Well, I think it was in 2019-ish. BlizzCon 2019. They announced the game Overwatch 2. But the big draw with Overwatch 2 was that they said the game was going to be primarily PvE based as opposed to Overwatch 1, which is a very much so a PvP game. Or at least that the Overwatch 2 would have heavy PvE components. It was going to build out the lore of Overwatch, which is the Overwatch has really cool characters, and every time they do a cinematic movie, like short movie for one of their characters, it's really like captivating. Like I think they're really well done.
The world is really cool. Like they say it in this interview, like the game's been so popular because like the world is really like kind of like colorful and optimistic and like diverse, and it's really fun.
It has
appealing.
Roots. You can feel that the world has roots and like a story has stories there to tell. And it was originally supposed to be an MMO.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing is that like the DNA of Overwatch is originally from, an MMO project that Jeff Kaplan and the people at Blizzard started years ago, like developing alongside WoW pretty much. So them coming back to PvE made sense to a lot of like longtime people who kind of followed it. It was like, especially they're talking about, talent trees and like making it into this full co-op kind of experience. It's like, oh, like this is going in that direction finally. Like you're taking the characters and bringing it, keep the PvP, but also bring in this, ambitious kind of story-based world, right. Which is super exciting. And that struck me as something that was like probably Jeff Kaplan's like goal all along to some degree, or like he was very passionate about it. And then he left the company in 2021, and they
scrapped it, and
they killed it.
And I think at some point, I don't know if this is the case. This interview is a little weird. It's like it just feels like they basically just say, "Hey, like we're just not doing it."
It was too hard. Yeah, we're not going to do it. It's too hard.
It was too hard. There's a quote in here which I think is insane. I like tweeted about it. I was reading this right before we hopped on, and I tweeted about it where they talk about. So the guy at GameSpot asked them, presumably the resources, time, and other necessities that you would have needed to make PvE were factored in when you originally came up with the plan to create this game. What has changed since then, now that you're in a position where you can't do it? And Aaron Keller, who's the game director for Overwatch 2, said, I think the scope of the hero missions was really, really large, and what it was going to take to finish it was going to be pretty remarkable, massive lift. you think about making a game that is supposed to be almost standalone co-op experience that people are going to be able to play as a main game, and not just how do you and not just how do you put all of that content into that to finish it. It's kind of a weird sentence. Even just a small piece of it, the talent trees, 40 to 50 talents per hero, over 35 plus heroes. You're looking at thousands of talents to make, everything just to get the game out the door, plus all of the content and all the missions you'll be playing to do that. And it is a pretty gargantuan ask for a team. And then on top of that, you need to run that as a live game. So content has to continue to come out for that side of the game. I read this quote and I was like, basically, this guy, Aaron Keller, saying, dude, you really expected us to make what we said we'd make? Come on, man. Sounds like Joe Biden. Come on, man. Come on, Jack.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Yeah. It's like a no duh. Like, yeah, like this, of course it's hard. This is a lot of stuff. It's like but you said you'd make it. Like there's no, I understand completely if, internally someone had this idea and you tried it and then they were like, I don't know. That's too much. Like, let's shift our direction. But it's like, this was the whole reason they cut support for Overwatch 1 for like 2.5 years, like no new heroes, no new anything, because they said they were working on this and they announced it. They went deep into it saying like, this is, a full sequel. We're adding in all this stuff. Like we're changing the scope of the game fundamentally. And then to just be like, we tried and it's just, I don't know. It's a lot of work.
So much work.
It
expected. Did you really want us to do all that? Come on. Like, that's like really.
It's just so endemic of like Blizzard and weird management stuff. It's
feels
like, they've got
Blizzard. It feels like old Blizzard is back.
It's like such a big company. They have so many resources and like you could, it feels like you're putting the cart before the horse. It's like if you didn't have the people and the real gumption to actually put this together and do it, then like hire those people or build new teams, try and like put it into a totally separate project while continuing with Overwatch 1, make that into a standalone. Like there's different ways to handle this rather than like announcing it as this full thing. And then like all this weird crap goes on with like teams, loss of talent. And then to be like, actually like, it's just, people lose a lot of faith. It's like, how do you expect people to be excited to like buy your battle pass now if you feel like you're going to get lied to about what's coming in the game?
And I do think Blizzard had the intention of making the game as they said they wanted to, but
100%.
But the writing on the wall for this, right? Because I loved Overwatch. I was following Overwatch 2 for a while, and I was trying to follow Overwatch 2, but after they announced it, it basically like went into the wind, and we didn't hear about Overwatch 2 for years, to the point where people straight up thought Overwatch 2 is vaporware. And honestly, it could have been, because when they eventually kind of like stealth announced that Overwatch 2 beta would be released and playable within like last year, they were like, hey, in like 3 months, Overwatch 2 is going to be out, by the way. Everyone was like, huh? We haven't heard about this shit in years. What the fuck? And
the PvE thing, like that's coming out in like 2 days.
And Overwatch and Blizzard was basically like, yeah, here it is. And it was just basically like Overwatch 1 with balance update and like updated UI. And I think the game felt a little bit sharper, felt a little bit crisper.
I was having fun with it, yeah.
Like I think even just the way it played felt just slightly snappier to me. But but it wasn't, it's not a sequel. It's not a sequel to the game. And it just feels like at some point they wanted to get something out for a quick win, so they decided to do this. And I would not be surprised at all if when they were making the PvE stuff, we're looking over how expensive it was to make. He's literally in this article describing how much work it takes.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't see a cost-effective way to make it fucking monetized. So they said, fuck it, scrap it. Yeah. Because that's what the writing on the wall looks like publicly, is that they either never really started making the game, or B, were working on it and then couldn't see a way to monetize it like they did with Overwatch 2 free to play, and they didn't think it would be worth it to develop because I think they said there's going to be like paid DLCs, and maybe even at like $20 a pop, they were like, that's just not worth the cost of development.
Whether it was their intention or not, like you said, I'm sure that all the different people who've worked on that team and at that company, like, wanted to make that game. They wanted to make that version of the game. Like, I don't doubt for a second that the developers didn't have that in mind and didn't put the work in, but like the optics of it are not good. They're actually quite bad. It comes good. Off. It ain't good at all. It comes off as them literally pretending like this was a big fundamental change to the game. And in reality, it was just a number added onto the end for like a balance patch and an update to the monetization. The two is literally just, it's literally just a change to the monetization, a change to the service aspect of it, which is
they took out earnable cosmetics entirely.
Yeah, and now it's a battle pass. It's a really expensive store. There's no loot boxes. There's no, you earn a little bit of the currency.
They went with that Halo Infinite business model.
Really, it actually feels very similar, I think, in a lot of ways. Like the pass, a very expensive store, and just like a weird there's a part of you that's just like, well, what's like the trade-off? Like, what do I get? You know, like it's like the offer meme from TikTok of the guy being like, I receive, like billions of dollars from this shitty store, and you receive
no more cosmetics.
Like a 2 on the end of the name of the game. It's like, it's just wild to me. Like the optics are so bad.
You receive characters you have to buy.
You receive new characters finally after like 3 years of waiting, but like you have to buy them. And, like the game is fun, man. The game's fun. I like playing Overwatch, but like it's just I don't want to support this crap until they like I don't even know.
I was really excited. I was really, really excited for PvE stuff that like built out the world.
Same. I was thrilled.
And I wonder if that's part of the reason why Jeff Kaplan left. Was he working on the project when it was supposed to be an MMO?
Yes, he was the one who originally, like, it was his brainchild. Like, at the company.
So he probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, we're not going to do that, and he was like, "Fuck this, I'm out." Because he went from this dude who was so passionate about Overwatch and the world that Overwatch existed. He went from having the green light to make an MMO where he could have told those stories infinitely and like deeply. To being a free-to-play platform, only cares about MTX really, and has like no story. It has 0 story, but not like none. It has fucking none. It has nothing.
Yeah. I think he's a bit too, from just what I know about him, I think Jeff Kaplan is too much of a gentleman to like spill the beans about all this stuff, at least not for a long time. But I'm really curious. I'm very curious about the timeline of it, because like I think the PvE stuff and really finally being able to grow the platform and the world was probably a big part of his goals for the IP and for what he was doing there and what he was doing with the team. He was very involved with the community, like, really loved everything about it. And I'm sure, he made this big pitch. He was part of why they announced it the way they did. And then probably somewhere along the lines, they were like, the higher ups or the people around him were just like, Jeff, it ain't going to happen. We got to change it. Like they're looking for the money. Money. Jeff, we need more money.
Money, Jeff. Money. Cornelio, money. Just like Beavis and Butthead are running Actablaze.
Yeah, they were like, Jeff, all right, we can't have the PvE
money,
and we're going to change. We're going to have a battle pass at a store. And he was just like, MTX. What the hell am I doing?
Money, cosmetics, monetization.
Yeah. And he saw, there's also a bunch of other stuff at Blizzard too, which is a whole nother topic entirely. I'm sure that was part of the reason he just dropped it. He literally like tweeted his departure. He was just like, "Thanks for the memories, Jeff." See ya. Peace out.
All right. Before we go, I wanted to hot drop one more thing on you, which came out like 30 minutes before we sat down to record.
Oh boy. Let's see it.
GTA6 might be coming out as soon as next year.
Whoa, dude. 2024. Imagine being here.
It's in the game.
GTA. It's in the game.
GTA 6. Publisher Take-Two Interactive may have just teased the release window for the next entry in the biggest gaming franchise of all time, Grand Theft Auto 6. It could be on the way as soon as next year. In a press release issued alongside its yearly earnings report, Take-Two shared projections for the coming years, including a massive projection for its fiscal years 2025 and 2026, For context, fiscal 2025 will begin in April 2024. So that's about a little under a year from now. Yeah. Looking ahead, fiscal 2025 is this is a quote from their statement. Looking ahead, fiscal 2025 is a highly anticipated year for our company. The release states, for the last several years, we have been preparing our business to release an incredibly robust pipeline of projects that we believe will take our company to an even greater levels of success. In fiscal 2025, we expect to enter this new era by launching several groundbreaking titles that we believe will set new standards in our industry and enable us to achieve over $8 billion Jesus, in net bookings and over $1 billion in adjusted unrestricted operating cash flow. MBAs, let us know what that means. We expect to sustain this momentum by delivering even higher levels of operating results in fiscal 26 and beyond. While Take-Two doesn't explicitly name Grand Theft Auto here, it's hard to imagine any other franchise doing this work for them. For one, Take-Two's net bookings this year past fiscal year reached $5.3 billion, a record high. That's insane. Yeah, that is insane. But yeah, so I agree with IGN. I don't know what else they could possibly be referencing to push them that far up the revenue stream. But
Bully 2,
honestly. But when we were talking about the CMA and the Microsoft merger and everything, it came out that the one game cost $1 billion to make. There's some rumors going around that like maybe GTA6 was the $1 billion game, because I don't know what else could be, honestly.
Yeah, it's like the king of big budget stuff. It's like the AAA kind of company and franchise.
But it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be wild. What are you excited to see? What do you want to see out of GTA 6?
That is a great question. To be honest, I don't even know, man. Like I really don't even know. Like in the year of our Lord 2024, with like all of the crazy stuff that we got going on with technology, with game development, like what is an exciting open world satire of America, or like GTA? It feels like GTA 5 to me like kind of hit, like that was like the peak, like the final form of Grand Theft Auto. So like what is it, just going to be that but bigger, like more fidelity?
They have to give the characters the ability to fuse weapons together.
They get the ultra hand.
No, but I agree. I mean, it's funny. I actually didn't even realize that the proper term to describe Grand Theft Auto was satire. And I think it'll be really interesting. I think this game is probably going to feel like a South Park episode more than a GTA game, because I think if they were to parody like America today, people will cry woke. So I think it's going to ring more like a South Park episode where it's like, look how dumb everybody is.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's probably going to be some like major league fence sitting.
Yeah.
In terms of just like, hey, like we're touching on everything. We're parodying everything, no one is safe, that kind of thing, which has always kind of been their way of doing it. So
100%.
Yeah, I just wonder, like things are so weird in the world right now, in America right now. It's like, what does a parody that makes people like laugh and make $8 billion, like what does that even look like?
And also getting so swept up in free to play games as a service.
The platform
GTA
stuff.
Online is like the most successful, one of the most successful iterations of that, if not the most successful iteration of that. Are they going to have the fucking dollar signs over? They're going to have the GTA bucks over their eyes. Like, the leak looked great. The leak looked awesome. Hopefully it's great. And I have probably some of the biggest expectations I've ever had for this game.
I think for me, like what I want to see, like we know we're going to get, probably a big city, cars, you drive around, you shoot, like that's a given. I'm sure that will be there and it will be really fun. I think for me, I want to see them push like the story stuff even further, like the characters, the writing, the scope of how you can kind of like the interconnections of like the direction of the cutscenes and in how it mixes into the gameplay. And I would love to see like more horizontal systems in the game rather than just, you're pushing through a story. There's things you can do that kind of like, like mini games, for lack of a better way of putting it. Like, San Andreas had like a ton. GTA San Andreas had like, you could go to the gym and like your character would get like buff. You could eat food and he would get, you know, big. He would like all these sorts of things. And like there's lots of like different styles of stuff that you could do. And I would love to see a return to that, honestly, just like wacky shit that makes the world feel even more immersive. Like you're kind of like in a playground of goofiness and zaniness.
Yeah, because I think the thing that 5 really blew the lid off on was like, it had its own weird sense of explorability where like, you know, you're driving across a desert and then all of a sudden like 10 minutes later you're like paragliding out of an airplane. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, I remember like paragliding in that game and being like, this is the most immersive thing I've ever played. Like the fact that I can even find and do this is mind blowing. But GTA 5 came out September 17th, 2013, so it'll be a full 11 to 12 years since that game. I found my brother was throwing away a bunch of 360 games just the other day, and I found in the pile of his games GTA 5 for Xbox 360. I didn't even remember that game came out on the 360. I
played it on the PS3 originally.
That's insane. I had an Xbox
Actually
One.
Insane, yeah.
I had an Xbox One. I think. When did Xbox One come out? Xbox One release date. I think Xbox One was Xbox One crossed to the PS3.
No, it was a 360 and PS3, and then Xbox One and PS4.
Okay, yeah. I played mine. I played GTA on a Xbox One, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, dude, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. It'll be cool. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully they don't focus too much on the service and the MTX. I just hope the service stuff isn't ingrained into the single player.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like I'm sure some people would love to see that. And like there is a world where
like
the
GTA
like a
single GTA player MMO.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like there's a world where that's done well and it's very cool, but there's also the part of me that's like, just let me play it offline. Like make it really good. Make it a really good offline. But like
them not
co-op
including
online
offline,
stuff is cool.
Them not including on offline will be like infinite not having like couch co-op.
Yeah, bigger though. I think that would be like such a controversy.
Yeah, and I could see that happening, but I hope that's not the case. But having like essentially GTA MMO. I would fucking love that. That'd be so cool. And I would love to get into GTA like online or GTA RP or GTA ERP, you know? That'd be sick.
Just play Final Fantasy 14, go to Limsa Lominsa.
Oh god.
Yeah. For all your ERP needs.
But yeah, dude, that's pretty much it for this week. Actually, it was actually like a lot more shit than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, same.
A lot of exciting stuff. Hopefully,
busy. It's always busy in the world of games.
I know. What's on your calendar this week? Are you jumping back into Tears?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back into Tears. I'm actually gonna play right after this. So I'm gonna eat dinner.
I'm gonna stream right after this at twitch.tv/NoBananaSuits.
Hey,
and Welsh, you're on Twitter.
On Twitter at SeanWelshBrown. One word, no spaces.
You can find me NoBananaSuits everywhere on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, blah 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 blah. But you can find both of us at SRankPod on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Music, and pretty much anywhere you listen to your podcast. So
podcasts are sold.
God rest your goddamn souls. Everybody go crucify some Koroks this week.
Yeah, go play some Zelda.
Go play some Zelda.
If you don't have a Switch, then Nintendo's gonna come to your house and
kill you.
Straight up
kill you with a real life ultra hand ability. They're gonna fuse you to your own house.
Fuse you to the floor.
And make you eat shit just like they do metaphorically. All right, everybody, have a good week. We'll be back next Thursday.
See you later.
Bye.